You're here. We are trusting people will arrive as it makes, um, actually, it's the last day of the month. And I've noticed in my day today, it's just something funny in the air. So people will arrive as they arrive. We are glad and honored that you're here. Um, the last day in January. Who's ready for a new month? I
I
am. I'm like, January, we're ready. We're done with you. We're ready to move on. So glad you're here. My name's Michelle. I'm joining from Amiskwaciwâskahikan, Treaty 6 territory, Edmonton. Um, I like to say I already said Amiskwaciwâskahikan, Beaver Hills House. That's what the original peoples of this land called this. So honored to have you here. It's been a gorgeous spring day. I know we're not in spring yet. We're still in the midst of that winter season, but let me tell you, it feels like spring out there. So I just enjoyed the day, took a moment outside and gave thanks to Creator. So I hope as you go along your day, or even right now, just take a moment and extend that gratitude, offer a prayer, offer a good thought, good medicine from your thoughts, your heart, your mouth to Creator. This is why we're here. And to operate in the gifts that have been given to uniquely us. And this is also why we're here on this Wednesday. We get to hear from this incredible woman. Heather is here to share a little bit about her story, but also what she's doing. And it's exceptional work that she is doing. I think you're following the call of your heart, this passion that you have, and it's beautiful. I follow her on social media, so I see what she's doing. I see how she's, telling the story, how she's connecting people to the story of the land. And I think that that is beautiful. So you've joined Can Do's webinar Wednesday, and really we're about building the capacity. We're about telling the story. We're about creating a space in which you can see, how can I be better in the organizations I work for, in the nation that I'm a part of, in the communities, or even in your own home fire? How can I develop skills? How can I bring the knowledge, take that knowledge that has been shared and apply it to my life? It's really about knowledge sharing here. And so I hope you walk away with a little more knowledge, some inspiration. It takes all of us to make our world, our circles, our nations, our families stronger. So when we hear from each other, I think that lights a fire in our spirits to stand a little taller in Creator's world. So welcome. So today's webinar is Creating Memories, Leaving the Footprints of Our Stories with People Locally, Nationally, and Around the World. The original storytellers of Turtle Island. And how are we able to be in the forefront of Indigenous tourism? Through one individual, one community, one treaty, one settlement, all coming together to support one another. And isn't that the truth? We all, walk on Creator's beautiful earth and doing this journey, sharing our stories together, building each other up, encouraging one another. I love that. So a little bit about our guest speaker today. She is from the Blood Tribe, the founder of Creative Spirit Solutions, and Buffalo Stone Women Entrepreneur. She's a creative strategist, community champion, skills builder, and so much more. Incredible women we have in our midst. We're just honored that you've made the time, the space for you to come and share your story with us. She is an industry expert with more than 17 years of experience in business and in education. Not only owns one business, but two businesses. And we're just excited to hear what you are doing and for you to share the knowledge, that's in your heart today. So thank you for being here. We honor you. And I'm passing this virtual mic off to you. Thanks, Heather.
You're always so amazing. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you always to Can Do to for the opportunity to be able to share and to be able to connect us all across Canada. So I am beyond excited. Uki, Ambawastich, Danistata, Hanse, Bozu, and hello, everybody. If I could just all of it and just know all of our Indigenous languages, that'll be so super cool. Um, so I'm reporting today from Mopkinsis, so here in Calgary, Alberta, and I am Nistunan Nistunan Natanago Otikitawaki Nutu Gaina, but Adopi here in Mopkinsis. And so my name is Otikitawaki, so all round pretty woman. I am from Blood Reserve, but I reside here in Calgary, Alberta. And, you know, in the heart of Treaty 7, which aligns all along the Rockies. So Karen, I absolutely love your background. Awesome background. Really cool. Um, yeah, I'm excited to share. What I would like to do is, you know, when I think about Buffalo Stone Women and the journey that I have been um, on, it has opened up my eyes. It has opened up, you know, the capabilities of what I'm able to do, but you know, where our community members and people, you know, we're the original storytellers of the land, and we need to be out there. And so I'm out there pretty well every day. So today it was crazy because I was out and I did a tour from 10 to 12:30 this morning. I went out and I quickly climbed the mountain, came back, fixed my hair as best as I could, and now I'm on. So that's my life, and that's, you know, just maneuvering both businesses and all of that. If you'd like, Karen, would you like to introduce yourself and where you're from?
Sorry, I had to toggle my button there. Yarakshin Yarikshirish, I should be saying. Good afternoon. Mihua and Squashed is my Inslakakam name. I am Inslakakam. I am a member of the Lytton First Nation, and I'm calling in from the Inslakakam territory in Lytton, BC.
Nice.
Yeah, I work for a company that's developed by the NNTC, the Nslakakam Nation Tribal Council, and the company is called AEWLP, and it's an acronym for Archaeology, Environment, Wildlife Limited Partnership. And my title is a community coordinator, and just keeping the communities involved and up to date on what's going on within the business and sharing upcoming work.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
And Ken?
I'm a ally and attending as many sessions as I can. And the reason being is to be an ally, you need to understand. So first understand and then try to help wherever I can.
Awesome. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. So I will get right into the presentation, and I'll get right into the presentation. And I do have access to share screen. There we go. So let's see how this looks. Where am I? This is kind of confusing. Let me just have a quick peek here. How do I minimize this?
I think that tab, right? So right where your arrow just was, that tourism can do, you want to click on that tab, I think.
Okay. Let's go here. Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. I'm going to hide this panel. Hide floating meeting control. There we go. So there we go. I'll kind of do this. Slap that up there and go into the slideshow. So tourism. So Buffalo Stone Woman has been in operation for three years, going into my third year of operation. Buffalo Stone Woman is also known as Aniskimaki, dating back to the buffalo stone that we find out here in our prairies. So Tsowaakii, Heather Black. Let's go here. So I am from I was born in Lethbridge, Alberta, and my homeland is Kainai Blood Tribe, Standoff, Alberta. So when we think about that, how did standoff become standoff? Even understanding that whole story. So when all the forts started becoming here, we had colonels and we had everybody coming into our nations and into our territories. There was a marshal by the name of Fort Marshal Standoff. And what he did was he had found an area on the Blood Reserve right along the St. Mary's River, and he built a fort there. So it was the second fort in Alberta. And basically, what it was it was a whiskey trading post. So on my reserve, and actually that's where my family all reside on the Blood Reserve, is along the St. Mary's River. So that's how Standoff became Standoff, Alberta. It was named after that marshal that came and built the first fort in our area, the second fort. So when I think about that, and it's really understanding our history and and our clans, and as well as our homestead, and Blood Reserve, and then local, what is outside of those borders and all of that. So when I think about Indigenous tourism, and when I think about how does how how does somebody become involved in Indigenous tourism? And I think I believe it's in our being, our it's in our ancestry to be able to understand how we walk. So in order to do and understand how we walk as Indigenous people, it takes our community to be able to build us up. It takes our community, our elders, our knowledge holders, to be able to help us and understand the lays of the land, our traditions, our beliefs, our you know, and learn the stories that need to be that need to be um, you know we need to learn those stories, because without what our teachings are, then you know if our knowledge holders um, pass on into the spirit world, then how do we actually collect those stories? So our community is number one. Indigenous Tourism Alberta. Every province has an Indigenous Tourism office. So BC, Saskatchewan, all of that. Travel Alberta, Calgary Tourism, and that's looking at more of the municipalities, and then non-Indigenous tourism operators. So for me to be a tourism guide, I need to engage in all of those sectors. And in each and one of those sectors is opportunity for learning, access to capital, access to resources, access to mentors, access to whatever we need to be able to help, to be able to grow ourselves in the Indigenous tourism business. So I'll talk about the challenges later, but this is pretty well the ecosystem of being able to really embrace and be involved in Indigenous tourism. So when I think about what that looks like, I'm going to show you a quick video about what Buffalo Stone Woman does, and how and the tours that I do here in Southern Alberta in the Rockies. So if I was to look at if I was to look at hide video. Oh, I didn't want that to do that. Oh, I didn't want to do that either. Show video panel and then um hide float meeting. So when I think about the tours that I do, so I love the Rockies and I'm an avid hiker. So when I was out there and I realized that, you know what, there's not a lot of Indigenous participation out in the mountains. There's not a lot of people hiking them. There's not a lot of people. So the majority of the people that I seen out there were all non-Indigenous people. And and then being traditionally rooted and knowing my culture and all and being engaged with ceremonies and all of that, one of my greatest tool was being able to go out to the Rockies, sit out there, smudge, pray, and realize the healing that happens when you're out in the mountains. So I started to make it a habit. So I started with a cotton t-shirt and a pair of runners and and jogging pants and all of that. So all not what is trail etiquette that's out there. So you have to have specific gear, hiking shoes, safety equipment, bear spray, all of that stuff. And I didn't have any of that. So I started, and then my family started to see that it was so important for me to go out there because it was the way I released everyday stresses. It was releasing work stress. It was releasing any kind of stress, but going out there, smudging and praying, and and really embracing spirit of the mountains. And I loved it. I was I was totally embraced by it all. And then I started to join other hiking groups. And as I joined these other hiking groups, and I wanted to explore more, but I wanted to go with people that had knowledge of those mountains and of those trails. So what I did was I joined these hiking groups and I started to go out. And as we sat along to eat and to have lunch when we got to our destination, um, I would take my little smudge and I would kind of trickle off and I would go and sit beside a big tree or wherever and then light a smudge and start and pray. Then um Asians, there was so many East Indian, there was so many people and white people that wanted to learn. So they started to trickle over slowly. And they wanted to be part of and they wanted to learn how to smudge and pray. That was when I realized that there was a need because it wasn't happening. It wasn't they were hungry to learn about Indigenous culture. They were um, they're hungry to ask questions, to be able to have a safe place to do it and all of that. So that was when the need and when I did the need analysis, I'm like, hey, you know what? I can do this. And it's going to take some time. It's going to, you know, a learning of a whole new industry that I had no idea how to get involved, how to do anything, and all of that. So with Buffalo Stone Woman, I what I do offer today is I have 11 different trails that hikers, can come and walk on. So it's 11 trails and one elder site that I have in the Rockies where we can have a walk around a pond, a traditional feast, and then an elder or a drummer or a dancer can come in the afternoon and do a teaching. So when I think about Buffalo Stone, it's not about me. It's about, yes, it's about taking people out into the Rockies, but it's how can I bring my community together of Calgary and exclusive to all Indigenous people that call this place home. How can I get them to complement and be part of my tours? So I engage with elders, drummers, flute players, dancers. I come from a family of dancers and just people in our community that are mentors to come out and to complement any tour that we have out here. So learning the lay of the land. And I think this is where I I walked into tourism not knowing anything. I walked into tourism not having a mentor or an advisor. In the business community is huge. If there's ever a challenge, we have experts, we have subject experts on everything. We know, how do we get over a hurdle is always by reaching out to mentors and our advisors. But in the tourism industry, there was nothing. There was nothing in Southern Alberta to be able to help me or guide me on what steps do I need to do to be able to launch a tourism business. So learning the lay of the land. And when we think about, about how 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 does all these organizations kind of come together? So in ITAC is Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada is the main pillar of Indigenous tourism throughout all of Canada. So they are our leadership. They're aware of the industry, their advocacy, accountability, um, funder confidence. So they are a funding avenue. They build member support. So when I think about partnership, they help build partnerships. So they bring together members and industry, and they know how to collaborate and maximize results. So they leverage federal, provincial, and regional partners to be able to support Indigenous entrepreneurs. They help with product development, investments, destination developments, international. We're now looking at being on the forefront and of international travel, um, and marketing. So how do we market? And I say a lot of just being aware of our business ecosystem is marketing is one of the challenging thing for Indigenous people because you need to be able to market online and to be able to really grow your business. What are our cultural impacts? The high value and targeted marketing, research, media, and sales efforts. So ITAC really is a huge umbrella. And then it goes into what it goes into is this is kind of a roadmap. And I wish I had somebody to kind of share this roadmap with me when I first started. So funding avenue and everything comes from the government of which is then fed through ITAC, which is Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada. Then each province is allotted so much money to support the entrepreneurs. So, you know, Indigenous Tourism of Alberta, Indigenous Tourism of BC, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and all of that. Then we look at um, it doesn't matter if your nation or your Métis settlement is on or off reserve, they will fund and they will support every Indigenous person to be able to help them develop their own tourism experience, as well as the Métis communities and the Inuit. So that is what the umbrella of the tourism looks like. Then we go into the certification. So in order to be involved into, if I was to say, okay, well, Indigenous Tourism Alberta, and in order for me to be classified as an Indigenous tourism business, there is levels of certification that I needed to do. So across Canada, there's going to be different, these are the bases that are in Canada, and it might be different between each of the nations, but certification is kind of like a must. Even if you're on reserve, it's very ideal to at least get one of the certifications. Outdoor Council of Canada does hiking, overnight, and canoeing certifications. Interpretive Guide Association. Interpretive Guide does interpretive hiking and also water sports as well. But Interpretive Guide allows you to get into national parks. So knowing the difference between each of these certification avenues, Association of Canadian Mountain Guide. The ACMG Guide is the highest level of certification that somebody can take. And that's about a 2-year training and certification process, because what they do is they take people out to the mountain peaks, up to the very high mountain peaks. You're scaling, you can rock climb, you can, do all of the extensive backcountry trips. And that's what ACMG Guide does. Now, since I'm a storyteller, which certification was ideal for me? So Outdoor Council of Canada provided me with the group management that I needed to take people out on easy to moderate hikes. So, and then it allowed me to learn all the safety procedures, how to look after people, what if this happened, anything like that. So that's where I started. And that was the base of me learning how to be able to mitigate risks, reduce risks out in the backcountry and all of that. So I am now an Outdoor Council of Canada level 1, level 2 hiking guide. I'm going into my level 3 to do overnight backpacking trips. And then the interpretive guide, I'm also in my certification process for that. Now, liability insurance is huge. So 2 million, the minimum for that is you need a 2 million coverage is the base starting point for having liability insurance, and knowing to access these outdoor insurance company. That was a huge challenge. And that was me looking at all of the insurance providers that were in and local around Calgary and phoning each and every one of them to see who would provide outdoor liability insurance. So for me, it was BrokerLink. So I'm happy that they were able to ask their 20 million questions that answered, and then I have the liability insurance. And then the backcountry first aid. So first aid was really essential because I needed to know if somebody was attacked by a bear, and I'm going to knock on wood, or somebody broke their arm or leg, or they fell and maybe they got a cut or anything like that, then I need to be equipped to be able to help and to fix all of those challenges that are out there. And how am I going to do it? What kind of emergency gear do I have in my backpack? My backpack is usually pretty heavy because I need to have all of these stuff in there to be able to mitigate risks and to be able to be ready for emergencies if anything was to happen. And weather can be an emergency as well. It could be a bright sunny day and then all of a sudden a thunderstorm rolls in. Well, that's extreme danger when we're in the mountains. Right now it's ice, and I was just out this morning and it was ice from the very bottom of the trail all the way up to the trail. It was excruciating. But having the right equipment to be able to still take people and on the tours and give them the what they really want to look at and all of that. So the journey. And the journey starts with you building your own experience. So Buffalo Stone Woman offers guided tours. We do 11 trails, and then we do elder or powwow fireside chats or anything like that. I also do bike tours out in Banff, so doing bike tours as well. And this year I'm looking at developing an all-inclusive 4-day Indigenous experience for travelers to be able to experience the beauty of Treaty 7, and then also take them on the land for that. So the experiences, and really ideally having your business plan. So really having your business plan to be able to strategize your goals. What is your short-term, long-term goals? How are you going to do it? Understanding all those fundamentals of the business plan is really key. So it's the same thing of developing that. What I did was I applied for my nation grant, and they were able to provide me with all my startup costs that I needed in order to launch Buffalo Stone Woman. My nation paid for my insurance, my business cards, my website, any of my certifications that I needed, and all of that. And I got a handy dandy computer to be able to continue and maintain like all of the business management administrative stuff. So there's grants out there. We just have to look at where they are, um, you know, within the community, within your nation, within the Métis community, and business service providers. So something like Indian Business Corp that's here in Alberta, or Alberta Indian Investment, or looking at different um, um, business service providers that are within your province. So in order to be considered, and once all of those are done, your website, the key thing is to have a booking feature. If you have a booking button on your website, and it says book now or inquire now for this experience, then that's when you're market ready. So when you have all of this in, and once you have that booking feature and you're ready to do business like for tomorrow, then that's when Indigenous tourism will be able to say, hey, let's support, like, we can help you grow your business. We can give you what you need to be able to grow and to develop your experiences and all of that. Then you become visitor ready. So you're ready to welcome visitors. You're ready to, open your doors and start delivering experiences that are out there. So here's a breakdown of what I've done is Indigenous tourism. So how do you become market ready? And what we do is if you're business ready, you're a new business, you're a startup, you're just entering the market and you have good business practices. So that's what the tourism will classify you as if you're business ready. If you're visitor ready, you're ready for visitors beyond your local market. So like for me, myself, I was marketing to Calgary, to schools locally and all of that. But then I started to expand and people, as I grew, Saskatchewan and BC and Ontario, people were starting to book and want to do some guided hikes with me. So when you're ready to expand or increase your capacity, and then visitor ready, you have to be a minimum of 2 to 3 years in operation. So you learn the lays of the land of tourism and all of that. Then once you kind of that, and then so now I am export ready. So I completed my business plan. I was visitor ready for 2. Now I'm going into my 3rd year. So now I'm considered export ready. And so I'm ready for international travelers. I'm looking at in the larger travel trade, relationship with tour operators, destination market organizations, and various travel destination organizations that look after more of the international travel and doing more larger tours, like for groups of, a large tour could be considered 20 to 40 people while we're out in the in the in the ecosystem. So I'm going to give you some stats on Indigenous tourism in Alberta, in tourism overall in Alberta. Today, there is at least 200 Indigenous tourism operated organizations in Alberta. As of January 2023, after this last study was done, there was 8,588 active businesses in tourism, non-Indigenous tourism businesses in Alberta. So if we compare and we look at that number, we say, well, there's 8,500 plus tourism businesses in Alberta and only 200 Indigenous tourism operators in Alberta. There's something that sits really wrong with me with that, because when I think about, we're the original descendants of the land, and we need to be on that forefront. And I'm such a strong advocate for that, because we're the storytellers. We know where our ancestors walked. We know what, how we transported things, how we created our homes, how we do ceremony, how we do all of that. So that really opened my eyes as a tourism operator, saying, what are our challenges and how come we're not out there? So I think about it, and I think, and this is true, and these are true challenges, and it's amongst our community. Is the lateral violence that we face in First Nation community, and as well as in our in the city. There's also territory disputes, and and I look at that and I say, you know what, Indigenous people, we unite for the murdered and missing Indigenous women. We unite for Truth and Reconciliation Day. We unite for, you know, every child matters. We unite and we celebrate at powwows and at round dances, and we show so much love in that. But then when we go back into our home, and then when we kind of like, there's something new going on in the community or something like that, then lateral violence. So I am very, I it's very hard because as the first Blackfoot woman to be operating in Treaty 7 that is licensed permanent, and that's something that I've been dealing with since I launched Buffalo Stone Woman. But my how do I resolve that is because as I welcome anybody to come walk, because the stories that I share out there are not stories of territory, are not stories of, of the tribes. It's a story of wellness. So when we think about wellness and how we balance in all of the four quadrants of a medicine wheel, then how do we balance, and how do we look at that as a whole, and how do we help ourselves? So when you come on a hike with me, it's about learning that, and also as well as how do you help yourself, and how do you refresh your spirit, and how do you, so that's what the tours are about. A lot of the challenges for Indigenous tourism operators as well as industry is the permit and licensing process. So I am permitted to only go into Alberta parks. I'm not permitted and licensed to go into national parks. But so there's that huge challenge, and then and it's a very big challenge for me today about those permits and license, and it's land use. So it's land use because sometimes we have traditional sites that are on private landowners. Sometimes provincial will block off roads that we're not able to have access to. National parks, you're not allowed to go in if you don't have this type of certification. So everything goes back down to land use, provincial, national, your certifications and your permits and your licensing. So there's so much things that I had to learn, and it is, once you've done it, then you're like, okay, I can do this, and I can, now I'm a tourism operator. But once it's done and you've gotten by all of those steps to become an Indigenous tourism, then you're sailing. Then you're sailing. And some people get intimidated and say, well, that's too much and everything to become a tourism guide. So now I am leading discussions to be able to reduce those challenges, to be able to look at saying, say if my mother, who is 75 years old, say she wants to take a group of people out and want to be able to tell a story, well, she should be able to do that and be able to, have access to lands and an opportunity to do that. So we're looking at different access and allowing our Indigenous community to be able to be on that forefront. So I really enjoy and being an Indigenous tourism guide, and what I hold to my heart, close to my heart, is our traditional leaders. That's where I build my strength from, is their knowledge and everything. So being able to embrace the stories, to be able to understand how we pick medicine, how it was in our being. It was from childhood. Is being able to pick our medicines and do it. It healed us in so many ways, and even as a group of women when we're all together. It's access to knowledge holders and organizations in the community. So, Kainai Ecosystem Protection Association, they have Nappy's Garden, they have Gatoyi Seed Bank, the Ini Rematriation Project, and food security. So, what they do is as a tourism guide, and I really embrace all the the work that is being done in our communities. So now, understanding what these plant medicines are. So knowing how to say them in the English word, but also in our Blackfoot words, and what their uses are. So how did we use that medicine to be able to help ourselves? So that's knowledge not only for myself, but for everybody, and even for non-Indigenous people. And this is just one of the teachings that we have is balsam root. So what was the benefits of balsam root? So being able to pick it, how did it look on top, but how do we harvest it, and then what do we eat out of it? And this balsam root, accompanied with some bison, was traditionally how we ate back in the day. So you know going back and looking at the way we traditionally ate, and then our people weren't suffering with being diabetic and all of those health challenges and all of that. So there's so many different ways that we that we that I gather, and being in the tourism, it allowed and it opened more doors for me, more connection of stories of the land, more connection of food sovereignty, and how and the importance of um, looking after our medicines and all of that. Today, I am excited to say that there's, because of TRC, the 94 calls to action, because of everything that has been happening, discussions are out there, and it's about regenerative tourism. So when we look at BAPS, or when we look at Canmore, or we look at different areas, the tourism, our communities are working on framework to designate to and to facilitate a thriving tourism industry and ensure the most important concern of the community is addressed. And what is that? It's building good relations with Indigenous communities. So when we look at regenerative tourism, it's working with municipalities, governmental bodies, strengthening relationships with all Indigenous neighbors, share and incorporate history through art and culture in towns, provide learning opportunities for all businesses. So now they're looking at doing that, which they've never done. And it's very challenging, to be able to say you go into a Canmore off, like it's a storefront or anything. There's no acknowledgement. There's no anything that, like, I mean, there's nothing out there. So now it's all coming, and it's such a blessing to be able to be welcomed into these smaller towns and tourist sites, and start seeing more Indigenous inclusion work that is there. So what does that mean for us? Today matters, and there's opportunity for all of us. When we think about what truth and reconciliation is, what does it mean to you? What does it mean to you, and what opportunity does that bring to you? With whatever background, with whatever career it is, there's opportunity for all of us. There's a lot of cultural awareness training. There's a high call out for that right now. And how did we advance in the latest business trends? And when I think about that, I think about, oh my goodness, like my website. I manage my own website. I have to make sure my email. I have to make sure I'm active on social media channels. all of that. So being part of those business trends and knowing our indigenous, even our indigenous business trends, what is those trends, and being part of it. Like this is huge, like with Can Do what they do, as well as the events and conferences that happen across the nation. I look and I think of opportunity. How do we support our youth and leaders in the community to be on the forefront of sharing those stories? So, giving the youth the opportunity to go walk on the land, or to be part of, to be part and really embrace the stories of that, and then open the door to networking. And with everything that is going out there, and so much opportunity for us to be involved. And I think um, it's access to our resources. And when we have that, and then when we reach out to Tourism BC, Alberta, wherever, Manitoba, that opens up our doors to being able to have access to resources, networking, and, which will then allow us to be part of the greater sharing Indigenous culture with the world. And the world is hungry for Indigenous teachings um, and everything like that. So when I think about it, it's like huge. It's like I love the tourism industry. I sometimes feel overwhelmed by, um, I feel overwhelmed with the of being, booked and then being triple booked, and then, so it's very, very, I find it very challenging to be one of the only operators in Treaty 7. There is tourism operators that are based in their own community. So there's teepee camps in Piikani First Nation. There's also one in Siksika. There's horse acquisition in Sutina, in Stonies. They have their travel center, but they don't really have experience. They have a museum, but you don't really have somebody that is out there in the Rockies or anything like that, in everything that is out there. So there's a lot of businesses that operate on the nation, but once you come off the nation, then I believe that there's also a huge, enormous opportunity for us to grow. So that is my presentation. And I would love to be able to open up if you have any questions, about, how do I, even become a tourism guide. And I believe I had the gift of speaking. I was going to say the gift of gab from childhood, because I remember my uncle saying that I could always speak. I could never stop talking. And I had that gift, and I still have that gift today. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Heather. I think, well, you have so many gifts, but one of the gifts that you just talked about is so important when you're a tour guide, right? And you're telling that story, and you're bringing people along this journey with you. So what a gift, what many gifts that you have. And I thank you. This was just a very, the word thoughtful presentation. Like there was some really good, I particularly liked when you shared how you connected with your nation to see if they could, and I think sometimes, for me anyways, as an Indigenous woman, sometimes it's hard to ask for that help. And look at you stepped out and you asked, and how much support you got. So for me, that's one of my takeaways. Because sometimes I just want to be Miss Independent, but we are meant to be people part of community and to tap into, support where there is. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. But we're going to open the floor for any questions that might be out there. Any comments? We invite you to come on in, put it in the chat box as well. Anybody have any thoughts, questions? Yeah, come on in, Karen.
Hi. What was the time frame from the moment you started to being ready for business? How long did it take?
I'd say it took me about a good month to write my business plan. And then from my business plan, it took my nation probably a couple months to review it and to go over and to give me the funds. Once I started and once I received those funds, I paid for all of the certification, insurance, and everything. So it took me about a good 6 months of like pre-planning in order to launch. And then when I launched, it was like, oh my God, it was it was it was crazy. My first tour I did, I actually had a we had a bear encounter,
Wow.
right? But I'd say it took about a good 6 months. It took me a year of getting my certifications. It, Once I got those certifications and I had the tool to be able to say, okay, I've got the certification. My nation will only support a business entrepreneur if I had those certifications. So I had them all prior to going and submitting my business plan. So everything they had, everything, and all I needed was to be able to do that, and then um, and then launch. So it took about a good year for certification, and then a good 6 months for business plan, and then to have all the tools to open.
Mm, that's pretty fast.
Yeah. And if
That's
you,
good.
and I think because I know how to write business plans, and it was like, and it took me about a good month, but I had to really think about my strategy, and I had to really think about who my target audience was. And then without having no mentors or advisors or anybody I can lean on with the Indigenous tourism, it was a lot of my own groundwork. And so I just looked at how the white people were operating businesses, and that was who my competitor was, and all of that. So I did all of that research and really understood what I was going up against. And um, in year two, I started blowing things out of the water, and people were saying, "Well, who is this Heather Black? Who's Buffalo Stone Woman?"
Mhm.
And the recommendations and everything, it was just amazing because I not only bring knowledge about our traditions and all of that, but it's also about our humor and how we have good conversation and all of
Mhm.
that. So that's what really, just being your authentic self, and being able to share our stories, and that's what people really enjoy.
Thanks for the question, Karen. I see another question in the chat box. Oh, but Ken says an eco business, sorry, an eco business that combines education, recreation, entertainment, and much more. Thank you for sharing a great story. That comes from Ken. And Trista, hi Trista, good to see you. What was your most valuable mistake and what did you learn from it?
Ooh, that's a really good one. So I think when you're the face of the business, um, you are the face of your business. And I think I have to learn to say no. So I think one of the main things um, was was um, was booking with an organization for a tour. Well, I was going on a 7-day backpacking trip out into the mountains to research the buffalo. So I was like, nope, I can't do this tour, and everything. So what I did was I hired, um, I have, um, I have um, hired guides, Indigenous guides that come out and they accompany me. So we're able to do a tour of up to 50 people. I just have to hire all Indigenous team. So building up confidence is huge. So they said, okay, we can do it, and they went and took out the clients out, and there was a group of 17. Well, one of the guys actually fell and sprained his ankle, so he had to be carried out. So I think it was like I think what was the mistake that was there was um the guide, the guides that I have, they didn't collect the liability forms. So at the very beginning of the tour, you have to have your liability forms. And so I had emailed and I had told them all, I said, I can't do this tour, but they forced it. And this is what I have to learn is for when people force, then it's not really good. So they forced it, and then anyway, so I emailed them the liability form, and I told them please print out and have them completed and give them to the trail guides. And they didn't. So when the accident happened, it could have been a huge liability against me, against Buffalo Stone Woman. But the guides, when and you can't control people. So if somebody wants to say, okay, well, I'm going to go climb this great big boulder, and and slip and fall off it, like, or even just like having a sprained ankle, that brings liability back to you. So the teaching, but the guides, they made a traveler, so, and they were able to put him on there, and they were able to get him out. So they looked after him. They had all the medical things to brace his leg, to do all of that. But at the same time, they were really proactive with being able to like look after him safely, help him, and get him out, which didn't call on the liability. But and then I was like, well, where's those liability? Oh, we didn't get them. And I'm like, oh my God. So it's huge. Liability is huge out there, and we have to take all precautions, and we have to make sure that every person is safe out there.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. One thing that I wrote it down because I really liked when you said this, the world is hungry for Indigenous teachings. And I really think how proud our ancestors are of you. Putting your running into a bear, putting yourself, in potential harm's way, but for the love of our story, for the love of our Mother Earth, for the sake of just taking people and experiencing this. Oh, so thank you for what you're doing and how you're sharing this wonderful Indigenous knowledge and connection and building those relationships. I think you also, and I wrote down, walking in good relationship, not only just with other people, but with the tourists, with the land. So you're really capturing so much. So thank you, Ken. If you have a quick comment, we got to wrap it up. So,
Okay,
so
quickly,
yeah.
did you charge extra for that travel ride for that client, dragging him out? And the other thing is, quick comment was, can you get the forms signed when people sign up online or whatever in advance of going on the field, so you don't have to collect forms in the field?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thanks, Ken.
Sorry guys,
Yeah.
we got another meeting like right now, so we gotta wrap this up.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
Take
Heather.
care.
You
Thanks,
guys have-
Heather.
Thank you.